Awesome. All right. So it looks like we have a good amount of people in here. So I think we're going to kick this off. Thank you everyone for joining. Really excited for today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking more on the topic around human capital, hiring, and how that facilitates into your workforce and how your guest experience can be impacted by your staff and how you train them. And I'm really excited to bring on Phillip Hastings today. Phillip is the former VP of Event Experiences for the Golden State Warriors and also did a stint over with the Orlando Magic as a director of arena operations. And full disclosure, we've worked with Phillip in the past, and we've absolutely loved working with him as a partner. And so really today, I'm just going to let him take the lead in drawing from his experiences to show what it takes to really create that top tier workforce, to really cascade down into how that ripples through your guest experience and for your fans. Quick introduction. My name is Ross Chesnick. I'm the COO of Listo, and I'm going to hand the reins over to you, Phillip, to introduce yourself, and we'll kick it off from there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today, Ross. I'm excited. Phillip Hastings spent 22 seasons in sports and entertainment from San Francisco Bay Area. 22 years ago, decided to take a chance and took an internship with the Orlando Magic. And as I got welcomed into that family, I ended up staying 14 years there and got to grow throughout that great organization. Grew into a full-time role. I did everything from retail to arena operations. We hosted finals. We opened one of the best buildings in the country, or actually the world, if you ask me, the Amway Center. We built and opened that building in 2010, hosted all-star games and various other big live events. Got to work alongside some great, amazing people and thought I had my forever job. But home came calling. And when the Golden State Warriors had a position available, it took that to get me to leave Orlando. So jumped at the chance and got in with the Golden State Warriors, who were my hometown team. And I was their biggest fan growing up, and joined them in an operations role. And lucky enough to jump on a really speedy moving train that were obviously the team was doing well and hitting the finals. And lucky enough to host several NBA finals, win a few championships, open another amazing, extraordinary facility in Chase Center, which is top tier in the world, and work alongside great people and, get to experience working in sports and entertainment to a different level as we brought a first of its kind entertainment venue to the city of San Francisco. So all of that, I mean, that's it in a nutshell, but there's a lot more in between. But like I said, 22 years of some great learnings.
Thanks, Phillip. And when I started kind of prepping Phillip for this webinar, I mean, we talked over, some of the series of topics that, he felt comfortable talking about. And one thing that really resonated here is just kind of your deep connection with your workforce and how invested you feel in both hiring, retaining, motivating, and just talking about how that really impacts the guest experience. So just to start, because I'm sure we all deal with the challenge of labor, especially in the venue operating arena. So tell me a little bit more of kind of the top of the funnel for talent. Like, how do you go about sourcing and finding the right staff?
Yeah. Everyone wants to talk about the guest experience first. And to be honest, I think it starts with the team member experience. You can't ask team members, both full and part-time, to deliver on that experience if you're not giving them a great one. And it does. It starts from the beginning, how you're recruiting, how you're onboarding, and everything from that standpoint. And those are things that you can't do alone. You really have to partner with other departments within your organization to create an opportunity that people want to join, right? So it's getting to know your people ops department if you don't already know them well, but know them even better. Get them to understand what your role does, what your team does, and what you're looking to hire for, because too many times it's very blank and generic because they don't know. So you really have to work alongside them to make sure they understand what they're hiring for. They're doing a ton of hirings. I mean, people ops stays so busy in every organization because I'm sure everyone's always consistently hiring. And whether you're in marketing, operations, sales, yes, they know a little bit, but if you take the time to help educate them on who your team is and what they actually have to do, I think it helps them when they're in the moment of hiring. And then also getting to know and work alongside your marketing department if you have one, because that's where the fun comes in. Being able to tell a story of what it's like to work for that organization In a few stops along the way, I've had some great marketing and people ops departments that work well together, especially now with social media, being able to create that story and put it out there, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or something like that, that shows what kind of the behind the scenes and why it is fun. There's a lot of work involved in what we do, but there is fun too. And to be able to post that and see that and draw the people in that want to be a part of that, right? Create that sense of urgency, like, hey, I want to join that team. But again, it goes back to the people operations and making sure that they're aligned with what you're looking for. So then when you get all these applications and you start to interview, that's when you interject the rest of your team, because they're the ones who are going to work alongside these other team members. So whether it's your full-time team and using people throughout the full-time team to help with some of the interview and vetting process, or if you're hiring part-timers, utilizing some of your supervisors or other part-timers that are going to supervise or work alongside these fellow team members and know that it's a team and they want all good people on the same team. So utilizing all of those groups to find the right people is truly key when you can do that.
Interesting. And are there any, in terms of like top of the funnel tips, like, because I'm sure you're competing with other venues in the area. I mean, you have a great sports city in general. So what are you doing to kind of differentiate yourself from those competing hiring interests in neighboring venues?
No, that's a great point. When you are in a big city and you are sharing talent, as well as guests, right? You're sharing what the way people spend money, but you are sharing talent. It's making it a place that they want to come to, that they look forward to coming to. And you do that with, and I think we'll get to some of this a little bit later, but in recognition, in appreciation, it's really creating a sense of belonging and giving that to the team members and not treating them as just a workforce, but as part of the team, so that they want to be there. They feel like they're part of it. They're not being left out. And then they want to go to bat for it. There's this passion that you create within them, that they're excited to come to work, to put on the uniform, to go out there and deliver on experience. Whether it's front of house, back of house, it doesn't matter. It's really all the same, because you need to motivate and activate that group to be able to deliver on whatever you're trying to accomplish. So it is key to create that sense of belonging.
And then that kind of segues really well into kind of my next question, which is like the retention piece. Like I've heard from numerous venue operators, things like, we have people leaving all the time, we have people not showing up for work. Like, so how are you motivating, a little more specifically, like how do you motivate them to retain them and make sure you have that consistent workforce year over year?
Totally. And as you mentioned before, it's hard in the environment of a big city that has multiple sports and entertainment venues, and you have part-time team members that are working one, two, sometimes three part-time jobs, and they're heading from different parts of the area just to get there. So you want to make it seamless for them, right? So the experience has to be seamless, but you also, and I mentioned it before, you have to create a program so that you recognize good work, right? So that you're taking the time to pat somebody on the shoulder with it for a job well done. And I mean more than that, not just the pat on the shoulder, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is just a vocal or a text or an email, some form of communication to say, "Hey Ross, that was great. Thanks for doing a great job." That goes a long way. But also taking the time to set up a recognition program. We've seen the fruits of the labor of putting together a recognition program that takes the time to not just pat on the shoulder, but to reward. It incentivizes a little bit too. Yes, I get that. But to me, a lot of my joy in my job is always celebrating a team member that goes above and beyond. And whether you take the time in both organizations that I've been at, both in Orlando and with the Golden State Warriors, part of the recognition program has been recognizing on the court during a game. You take 5 of your what we call superstars, and we'd recognize them in front of all the fans, all their fellow team members, and sometimes the teams on the court too. So they get to see these full and part-time team members being recognized, and the smile, the grin from ear to ear, that's rewarding enough. But there's more that comes from that. But those are the types of things. But you can't stop there, because recognizing you can't recognize everybody. You would love to. Yes, you can from a quick stop and say thank you or an email, but the on-court thing or the prizes that you give out, you can't, you miss somebody at some point. So the best way to capture everybody and continue to motivate is, and want them to have that sense of belonging, is the appreciation side. There is that thank you for showing up, whether it's a sweet treat in the office or on their way into the event or whatever they're working, or a get together, a happy hour, a celebration at the end of a season, throughout the year doing team member pop-ups, giveaways, raffles, little bit of things here and there. You don't have to go, we'd love for you to go above and beyond, but just because you're showing up and you're doing your job to the best of your ability, we're going to do a few things here to show that we appreciate you. So to me, those are those ways, among several others, that you can set yourself apart from another organization or operation to really bring those people in that you want and need to work alongside you as you execute an event.
So interesting. And I think like one of the things that always comes to mind when I hear kind of like these, holistic strategies of how to appreciate your staff, my mind always goes to kind of the execution of that, because you're sitting in kind of a VP seat where you kind of have this holistic view across, dozens and dozens of employees. So how do I don't know if it's empower your managers, your supervisors, like what do you do to make sure that they can see what's happening on the ground floor and then they can celebrate those individuals? Like, how do you do that with such a large workforce?
Well, you have to get out of the chair, out of the office, and you have to go do it yourself, right? And show them that you're doing it, take them alongside you, and show that it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at, you can do it at any time. And it is key to get fellow team members to take the time to recognize other fellow team members as well, because it does help pump them up and it creates that community, right? So for me to get out there and be able to be on foot and walk around and talk and communicate and hear. And let me take a side step real quick. When you get out and you do that, you're not just recognizing and celebrating, you're also putting your finger on the pulse of what's going on, because that's a key too in an experience, is you hear and you see things, but you hear and see through the eyes of your fellow team members. If you're sitting in an office thinking you know everything that's going on, that's not happening. You've got to get out there, and by empowering, as you mentioned, Ross, empowering your team members to get out there, take the time, recognize, appreciate, have conversations, communicate, collaborate. That's going to create that it's just second nature. We're all going to do it. And again, it goes back to the team. It's not one certain individual that goes around and does this or who gets celebrated. It's everybody. And when more people pump up more people, I mean, rising tide rises all ships.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I think we're going to kind of intersect this now with the guest experience side. So you've talked about kind of how to motivate labor, how to hire. Now, where does that intersection happen where you have a really good team? How do you get that to manifest in delivering to those fans and those guests and really elevating that guest experience?
Yeah, it really goes, obviously hiring the right people, as we talked about, but training is so key, and communication and information. You can't just put together a manual and hand it out to your team members and say, here's how it is, go do it. You have to help them understand what the moment is, how they operate in the moment, and you have to do it not just two-dimensionally on a diagram in a webinar or a PowerPoint presentation. To me, key in really delivering is being able to execute in the moment by, it's not your first time there, or by taking real life situations and for lack of a better term, acting them out, role playing, right? And getting your team members to understand. And honestly, you learn a lot by doing that, because while you think of things and you've been experienced and in the moment, certain things populate themselves while you're doing these role playing opportunities, because you see how something works. And what's even more fun is when the team members take control of it. Sometimes it gets a little bit crazy and they take it to the next level. But in all seriousness, though, they see things that you don't see, or they point out things that they've dealt with that maybe you haven't, because while you're on the front line from time to time helping out and working alongside them, you're not there every moment, right? And so being able to recreate these and work as a group to not only practice through them, but come up with ideas on how to maybe look at it from a different lens or execute it a different way, so that it's a better experience for not just the guest, but also the team member. And you don't just do it one time a year. You've got to do it throughout the year. Multiple check-ins. I'm not saying a giant training every month, but whether it's little tidbits here and there monthly, whether you're doing it through email, you're doing it through in-person little huddles, or you're actually getting them together outside of an event day or a work day and doing a 1 to 2 hour, maybe a 3 hour, retraining on certain things or highlighting what's topic of the moment. But you've got to consistently stay in it to be prepared for what's going to come, and just to really hone in on your skills.
Is there a like specific like story where one of your employees who you're training kind of manifested and went above and beyond to manifest that into a guest experience? Like I'm sure there's something that's top of mind where we can just give, the people that are listening right now just like a taste of what that can actually look like.
For sure. We always talk about, you have your job and you have your role, and then there's times to take yourself out of one to do the other because you want to deliver on the experience. And being able to watch some of the team members just see it click, and you see them like, wait a second, you're supposed to be over here. What are you doing over here? And it's because they're taking the guest from point A to point Z. They may be, for our industry, and you've got ticket scanning at the doors and you're welcoming guests. You may have something there, or someone that's just inside the door that's helping wayfind and give any information that they're looking for from a customer experience standpoint. And you see that person another part of the level of the building in an arena. What they're doing is they're taking a guest from point A to point Z, so that they're creating this whole entire experience. And they're not just like, yeah, if you go over this way and you talk to the person at the end of the hall, they'll point you in the right direction, because too many times they're getting to the next person, to the next person. So seeing, and I've been lucky enough to experience and see it several times. So not just one team member, but one of these team members that we would call an ambassador end up on a suite level because they want to take a guest from the doors. And look, I'll be honest with you, and this is why we put extra team members in other spaces. Certain buildings, just, it's harder to navigate. You can have apps, you can have signage, but when you're there and it's huge, 900,000 square feet of awesomeness, you get lost in the moment as a guest. And sometimes you're afraid to ask questions on, how do I get here? What do I do? So to be more proactive, which is what we push the team members to be, step up, not just greet, but how can I help you? It looks like you're lost. So being able to take a guest all the way to their suite and point out things along the way, like, oh, here are the restrooms, or here are some concession stands. Watching that live, that shows me that the training that we've done has come full circle.
That's great. And it actually reminds me of one of our earlier webinars when we were talking with Todd Humphreys at Climate Pledge Arena, where he was saying that if you do start identifying efficiencies, it's not about reducing your labor force like holistically, it's about reallocating them to additional areas so that they can provide this type of turnkey white glove guest experience for GA or in the premium section. So it does resonate a lot in terms of like that small thing really goes a long way, even if it's not technically within the scope of their job.
Yeah. And on top of that, though, going back to the training, knowledge of the building. If you're in an entertainment venue, or any venue, or anything that you do, if you're putting someone in a position, they've got to have all the tools to be able to deliver on the experience for the guests as well as for them, because it's an awkward moment if someone walks up to you and you don't know the answer, to like, hey, where's the closest restroom, or how can I find the closest exit? You've got to be able to have just the small keys for them navigating, and that sets everybody up for success. And it's a much better experience if you're not going to 3, 4, 5 people to get an answer.
And I will say that as a fan that has gone to a venue, and which I will not name, I have asked those questions and been met with blank stares, and that does impede my guest experience. So those
Yeah.
little things really do add up for a paying ticketed fan. And so we've kind of talked about, a lot of the success stories, like the positives, what you can do right. But obviously, game day comes and sometimes things just don't work out. So, what would you say in terms of managing teams and labor? Like, what have been some of the more difficult elements to address?
Yeah. Several different things, and probably have a long list, just like everybody else that's in the industry, of what could make it easier. Some of it goes back to what we were discussing just a moment ago. Not everybody gets everything, whether they came in late, they didn't get the training, or maybe that it just doesn't sink in. So you have several team members that are on the team that just don't have the information, or maybe they're having a moment and they're having a bad day. And so they're kind of giving that back to the guests. So you run into those situations, and hopefully you've got fellow team members or supervisors or managers that are within eyesight, earshot distance that can help navigate through those situations, and help with conflict resolution. That's a big thing because people are spending, if you're in sports and entertainment venues, people are spending a lot of money and they care about what they're spending on. So their expectations are even higher. So the moment they walk in the door, they're needy for something, and some are needy more than others. So being able to have conflict resolution as a tool in your toolkit is huge. And a lot of that is patience and listening and getting some of these team members that are coming from multiple jobs or been working all day and now you're at an event that night to have patience is key. And not everybody has it. So being able to navigate through that, coach in the moment or after the moment, if there was a situation that needs some teaching and some areas of improvement, because if you don't, you let it fester and then it grows into something that is something that you truly don't want out there, and it probably keeps coming back. I would say another piece is getting an understanding of what is truly important, not just for the guest, understanding that, but also the organization. A lot of organizations like to talk the talk. Experience is our most important thing. You've got to go out there, you've got to deliver it. But we all know budget season comes around and staffing's not cheap, and some of the tools of the trade that you need are not cheap. And so you're not revenue generating. Some will say you're not revenue generating. I truly believe you are, because you're helping get the guest to return, whether they're a one-time visitor for a game or a concert, or they're a season ticket member and they're in the building for most concerts and games. You help that return, right? You may not be the salesperson, but you're the one that makes them feel welcome, that sense of belonging. That's not just for the team members, obviously, it's for the guests too. And when a team's not doing well, or a show maybe has a delay or some sort of thing, it's your team members that are helping make that experience better. So being able to set them up. So I go back to that. How important is the organization? You, as a leader of that area, have to do a great job of marketing and staying in the front of mind for the other executives and the other people in the organization, to really get them to understand how important it is and how they need to be more engaging as well within this whole workforce.
And you alluded to this a little bit earlier, and you've been talking about it throughout, which is kind of, you can't use technology to solve all of your problems. You still have a human-centered experience and a human capital that you have to manage and make sure that that manifests in the guest experience. So I think what we've heard from other panelists is like how they augment that in-person experience with technology. So what, in terms of best practices, like how do you think about technology as it pertains to making sure that you have that cutting edge experience, especially for some place like, the Chase Center? So what do you do, and how do you think about technology procurement to really help your team?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot that gets thrown out at you, right? As you're in the industry and all these hot new opportunities and technology, but you really have to vet them, because one, you got to be cost effective. Nothing's cheap. But two, how much does it really affect the experience? Are we going 3 steps to the left to take 1 step to the right? And is that worth it to really understand what that is? And there is a lot out there, but there are a lot of great things out there. Everything from behind the scenes for the team members, and being able to, whether it's the onboarding piece, the scheduling piece, the recognition piece, but obviously there's those that are front of house with the guests. And we've worked together. This is how we got to know each other, Ross, and working together for a product that allows us on our suite levels to be able to interact with the guests when they want that interaction. Because, for example, on a suite level, there's a lot of space to cover on a premium level, and you only have so many team members, and you're working your way around in your mind what you think is in the right amount of time. But as we all know, we all feel the same way. When we want it now. So a push button technology that allows a guest to signal a team member when they need something, oh my gosh, that makes everything even better, because the guest, now you do have to deliver in a certain amount of time back to that guest so that you're activating on their call, or else it's not worth it to them. But it tells you when you need to be there. You still need to be there other times, but it gives you that opportunity to like go down the list of things you need to do, cover the areas. oh, I need to go see Mr. Smith, I'm right there. And it alerts and it keeps you really in sync to how the night or day is going. And at the same time, it makes everyone more efficient in their roles. But at the same time, I look at it for the guests that it makes it a more seamless process for them as to when they need something. So that's to me, and I know I'm kind of just scratching the surface of that partnership, but there's so many opportunities there that it creates the seamless experience for the guest, which makes the experience for the team member that much more efficient and fun to be in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Philip, and that's one of the reasons we kind of launched this relationship is, one, we love working with NBA teams, but two, it's to make sure that we're continuously adding value, especially with that guest experience.
It is. And look, it's also the experience within the partnership, right? Us
Yeah.
with you. And it's not like, hey, we've got this product, here you go, see you later. It's a partnership now, and the relationship has been built, and now it's fostered over time. And you get to give the technology team like yourself feedback, and then you implement that feedback to make it better. And that's to me a great partnership. And that's why I've enjoyed working alongside you.
I appreciate you, Philip. And then the last question here, I know we're kind of coming up at time. We will have time for Q&A. We can run a couple minutes over here. But the last question, I've tried to do this within all of our webinars, is, we have people listening in that want to know what can they do today coming out of this webinar? So after talking about, human capital, the full funnel from hiring to retaining, what would you say are 1 to 2 things that venue operators can do today to radically improve the quality of their workforce and thereby cascade that down to the guest experience?
To me, it comes down to communication. You need to communicate always and in all ways. And what I mean by that is consistently getting out the information to your team members, what's going on, if there's any changes. You have to stay in front of it. And it goes back to what we were talking about with the ambassadors earlier, is you got to give them the tools that when people approach, they've got all the information in their arsenal. And that's key. If there's changes, anything that needs to be get to the team members, full and part-time, they need to know there's nothing worse than surprising. Don't get me wrong, it happens, and there's only so many hours in a day and days in a week, and you're in meetings, but you try to communicate as much as possible, because that information is so key on the experience for the team members, and then that turns into the experience for the guests. And in the all ways part, utilizing, whether it's verbally, in person, it's through a media like this, using social media, text, emails, because if you're not, something's going to get missed. So that's why, to me, it's key that you're using all means or modes of communication to get the word out there, so that it's not like, well, I emailed you, didn't you get it? No, you've got to follow up. It's a little bit more work, but in the end result, you're going to have people that are educated on what's going on. That way they're ready for the situation, and they appreciate it that much more because they're in the loop. And it gives them, going back to what we talked about, that sense of belonging. They're part of the team.
Yeah, no, that's great. And okay, so we have a couple of questions here that just came in. One is kind of a little bit repetitive of what we talked about previously, but I think it's worth diving into a little bit more, which is kind of when you bring on a new tech, how do you kind of bridge the gap between implementing that and make sure that manifests in the guest experience? So you're already on the other side of accepting tech. How do you go about the implementation process to make sure it's actually providing that ROI?
That's a great question. I'm glad that was asked. So thank you for asking that one. It's key to involve as many stakeholders as possible. Let's take the push button technology in suites with Listo, right? If I or someone on the tech team just said, you know what, this is a great opportunity, we're going to bring this in, and just did it and didn't involve others, now everyone's not educated on it, so that word is not getting out. So involving your premium team is a definite. Involving your food and beverage team is a definite. And talking about it in a full staff meeting is important, because people are going to have questions about it. People are going to want to know more about it. And how do you get it out? It's a form of marketing, if you will, on the product itself. And to get it successful, people need to understand it, hear about it, know about it, and have a little bit of knowledge on how to use it. At least just the basics, right? They don't have to be the experts. So to me, it's key, because then as you're building it, and look, not every building is built the same. They're close, but there's nuances in each. So being able to work with different departments throughout the organization to be able to launch and implement is key, because you find those nuances and you adapt to your space. And then on top of that, those different departments help get the word out to others. So your premium department gets it out to their clients, right? Now their clients are informed, and there's probably a little quick how to. And then when the guest shows up, they're there. It's not a, hey, what's this? So to me, it's key in involving others. And I think that's in almost everything that you do, but especially bringing on a new technology, because what's going to happen is if you don't talk to these other departments, I don't know, ask them. And that's the worst thing that could happen, whether it's to a fellow team member or a guest.
Thanks. No, that's really helpful. And we have another question. I think this is kind of the elephant in the room, which is, you've worked for an organization that's won 3 championships. It's, top 5 most valuable franchises in North America, at least, if not the world. So what are some of kind of those amazing experiences that you've kind of lived through during your stint working for the Warriors?
Well, I have to be honest with you. The amazing experiences didn't start with the Warriors. It started back in Orlando at the Amway Center, which is now I think the Kia Center.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you go through calling something for 10 years and it changes names, but that's the nature of the beast of the business. But oh my gosh, it's the people. It's truly the people and celebrating wins alongside them and learnings. I can't. The list is too long, going back to when I started at the Magic to recently when I've left the Warriors, of so many people that have impacted me. I wouldn't be who I am or where I am today if it wasn't for all of those individuals who came together as a team, and they were kind enough to celebrate successes with me, but also help guide me and show me the way when I failed. And let's be honest, we all fail, and we fail quite a bit. That's how you get better, and learning from that. But it's the people. And to me, that's the celebration. And I didn't truly see it until the pandemic, to be honest with you. You get stuck in the rut of what you're doing in the fast pace of our industry. Your nose is to the grind. And yeah, you take a step back. And I preach that. Try to take steps back from time to time to absorb it, take it all in, because it goes by way too fast.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, when we were doing all meetings in this realm, we were planning for the unexpected. And then we started to come back to games with no fans. And that's when it really, truly hit. And we started doing some webinars with some team members, some trainings, and some welcome backs. And I started to like, oh my gosh, I've missed seeing you. And I've missed seeing you in person. And then it came time they showed up and they were in uniform. And the people were coming into the building. And my heart melted. That's where I learned what the best experience in everything that I did was the people. And they're the ones that ignite the fire and keep it burning.
Thanks, Phil. And we're a couple minutes over here. I think we're going to have to conclude. But Philip, I really appreciate the time. I appreciate your sincerity, kind of sharing your best practices here. But I think on behalf of everyone that attended here, I really appreciate your words of wisdom on a very difficult issue that everyone in the industry is facing right now. And I think I've come away with some learnings here. I hope everyone in this group has as well. But again, really appreciate the time and thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ross. I appreciate it. It was a true honor, and I look forward to continuing our partnerships outside of here.
Sounds good. Take care, Philip. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.